Potential Experts is brought to you by Vermonti's. Craving something cheesy, crispy, and unforgettably delicious? Say hello to Vermonti's Pizza, where every slice is a love letter to the Green Mountain State. From classic pepperoni to our legendary mac and cheese pizza, we're serving up bold flavors you won't find anywhere else. Order online and get 20% off your first order with promo code Vermonti20. That's VERMONTY20. Hit us up on Instagram at Vermonti's_Vermont Eats to see what's hot and fresh right now. Vermonti's Pizza, homegrown, handmade, and hella good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Potential Experts. Today is Tuesday, June 9th, and the New York Knicks trail the NBA Finals 3-0. No, they don't actually do that, but by my tone over the course of the next 45 minutes, you will be led to think that. I can't say the same for Ben. Ben, I think, is a little bit more on a positive wavelength than me, although we both were kind of in the same zone last night, feeling like an opportunity to take a commanding 3-0 lead in the finals was squandered in a game that the Spurs never really put the Knicks away until the very end with some clutch shot making by Stephon Castle on a bailout three at the end of the shot clock, De'Aaron Fox with a nice mid-range jumper, and then two clutch Steph Castle free throws. I could talk a lot about the live ball turnovers that destroyed the Knicks. I could talk about the free throw disparity in the second half, 24-8 in favor of the San Antonio Spurs. But I really don't think the Knicks played very well. Wemby had his garden moment with 32 points on solid efficiency. Ben, what are you thinking, man?
Yeah, like you said, I'm definitely not as gloom and doom today as you are. Obviously, I'm not happy. While I was going on last night, I was like, "Oh, series is over." I woke up today feeling a little bit different. The negative emotion I'm feeling is more just anger, really, than anything else. Jonathan Macri from Knicks Film School, he's got a great Substack if you're really big on the Knicks. His article today was just like paragraph after paragraph of saying, last night was disappointing because boom. Last night was disappointing because boom. And yeah, I think that about summed it up. I mean, there's a million things to be disappointed about. That was a game they had. You see it from the Knicks time and time again. If it's a close game in the fourth quarter, normally they figure out a way to pull it out. I guess living along that edge, sometimes it's going to go the other way. And that's why I'm not like super down on them right now. You're not going to win every game. That 13-game winning streak was an outlier. That wasn't normal. The Knicks are a great team, but they're not, the 2017 Warriors or the 2001 Lakers. And so, yeah, just some things didn't go your way. If you're watching, you'll see my background showing a classic ethical play from Victor Wembanyama. You're going to get about 30 seconds of me complaining about the refs real quick, and then we're going to leave it because as frustrating as it was not the reason why the Knicks lost. The officiating in the series has been awful. It is very clear, and this is not news to anyone, that the NBA wants a long series. This, at the end of the day, is a product more so than it is a sport. It's frustrating, but it is the reality. It's not even a Spurs thing, right? If the Knicks were down 0-2 going into tonight, they'd be getting a great whistle. But the Spurs are down 0-2, they're going to get, the favor of the calls. And that's what happened. You have plays like the one behind me. And if you're listening, it was Wembanyama just taking a shot at the back of Brunson's neck. That just didn't get whistled. And then you have a lot of touch calls on the other end. It is how it is. I'm not going to get too upset about it. The thing that I guess bothers me the most there is that Wembanyama posits himself as this sage, ethical, just basketball savant, and the NBA puts him up on this pedestal as a golden boy. Yet we've seen time and time again that is just not the case. He had Alvarado in a literal headlock last game that went uncalled. We saw earlier in the playoffs, he put an elbow right to the neck of Naz Reid, got thrown out of the game. Should have been fined at least on top of that. Nothing else. And I mean, he had Bismack Biyombo just when he checked in the game against OKC, he said, "I want you to take dirty, cheap shots in Jared McCain while he's in the air." Listen, if you want to be a villain, go for it. The sports need that. It makes it more entertaining, sure, but stop pretending to be something you're not. So that's what you're getting on the refs from me. Yeah, it was lopsided officiating. It's not a big anti-Knicks conspiracy. It is just a pro-long series conspiracy that's going to happen in every NBA Finals. So that was frustrating, but ultimately it was still there for the Knicks. 1-point game going into the fourth quarter, and close at the end. You had some threes rim out in the fourth. There was one from Shamet, one from Cat that, kind of Sam Merrill-esque went in and then went back out. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. And then you have Cass on the other end hit a massive shot. Took me back a couple years ago to the second round when Nemhart hit a big three against us to stop them from going down 3-0. I ultimately went on to win that series. Hopefully, this is a different outcome. Obviously, the Knicks are not plagued with injuries in the same way. Knock on wood. But when you think about all the good vibes the Knicks have had, 13-game win streak, some miraculous moments in there. Yeah, I'm gonna go there. It's to me not a coincidence that all those good vibes and energy going your way and that team of destiny goes out the building the minute you bring in that just negative energy shoot out. But it also just it made the game something bigger than it even was. It messed up fans entering. You don't get the energy of the watch party outside the Garden. Apparently, I don't. Ben, fact check me on this because you're way more online than I am with these things. I saw somewhere on Reddit that he went in the locker room before the game. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, I'm
I
sure
can't
that was
speak
just.
to that.
I saw that on Reddit. If it's true, you know, makes sense why you have a slow start after something that weird happens, even if it wasn't, even if it was like a guy that they like coming in the locker room before the game. NBA players, just like all athletes, they're creatures of habit. And that just distraction made this game so unhabitual on top of how unhabitual a finals game already is. And so I think that may have been a factor in the slow start. But at the end of the day, they need to take responsibility. You have the craziest crowd and atmosphere in an American sporting event, at least in the 21st century. And you come out, you go scoreless the first couple minutes. You have these dumb turnovers that plague them the entire game. If you go out strong in that atmosphere, it's very hard for San Antonio to come back. And then eventually the Knicks will their way back in. They end up taking a 7-point lead at half, and they do the exact same thing to start the second half. More of those dumb, just unforced turnovers. San Antonio is a great defensive team, but I don't credit those turnovers to that defense. That was just stupidity. The whole team was looking like Wemby at the end of game 2. I don't know what was going on with that. And they ultimately they shot themselves in the foot too many times. With how good San Antonio is, with how the games are officiated, the Knicks need to play very, very high-level basketball to win, and they just didn't do it. And, they put themselves in too deep of a hole to really climb out of. So it is what it is. Famously, though, no team's ever won a finals from winning one game in the championship. You got to win 4. You're back in the Garden tomorrow night. And according to my very own mother, one of the countless New Yorkers who does not follow the Knicks, but with an NBA Finals run here, is relatively locked in with what's going on. She just told me 20 minutes ago, Ben, I think they have to win tomorrow, because if they don't, then it's tied up. You lost both at home. You're going back to San Antonio 2-2. They have the momentum. Like, they need to win tomorrow's game. And I'm like, yeah, tomorrow's a must win. You have a very difficult path ahead of you if you're the Knicks and you lose tomorrow. So it's a big game. This podcast will be out after it. If the Knicks do lose, I'll be in a similar headspace to where Ben is now. But if you win, up 3-1 after 4 games, that's a great spot to be in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Ben made a lot of good points. Like, this team was bound to come back down to earth, right? They had a really, really impressive run, but they're not the 0-1 Lakers, right? So they were bound to have a game where they lose. And San Antonio is by far the best team they've played. I still think the Knicks are in a really good position right now. They're up 2-1. They play at home again. And that game was close. San Antonio took care of the basketball last night. Wemby was 11 of 18. That's incredibly efficient. And Castle shot the ball really well. And so did Vassell as well. So a lot of their guys were knocking down shots at a really high efficiency. I still really do like the Knicks' chances in this series. If the Spurs come back and win it, I feel like at that point you got to tip your cap. Like, Wemby is that guy, right? And he is that guy regardless if they win or lose this series. But he has the potential to write like the first chapter of his greatness.
And that would be the most Knicksian thing ever, just like throughout history, to just be the footnote in someone else's story. And I think that's why Knicks fans, they want it so bad. Something different, something good for a change. And like you said, it's very much in reach, but you're going to need a much, much sharper game 4 to beat a team that's this good.
I also think game 3 too was like the first time where the NBA community kind of recognized like the Knicks are the clear favorite now to win the title. I think it took them that long to as a whole NBA community to admit that, right? Going up 2-0, I said it was locked in the bag, right? And obviously we're having a little bit of a different conversation now that it's 2-1. But I think there was a lot of pressure coming with that, right? The Knicks probably felt like they were overlooked all season. Now all of a sudden you're up 2-0
Hmm.
at home. Like New York fans want that so bad, that energy, right? There's got to be a lot of nerves coming with that group. I feel like, now they have that finals experience at MSG, in their pocket, and they'll respond a little bit better, I think, tomorrow night.
Yeah, it was honestly pretty similar to last year in the playoffs where they had two crazy wins in Boston in the second round, and then they come back to the Garden for game three. Biggest Garden moment of the 21st century up until this one. Pressure's at an all-time high, and they go out and they have a similar game. I mean, that one wasn't even close, if I'm remembering
Right.
correctly, but they came out super flat in the same way. They were able to bounce back in game four. So hopefully you get a similar thing happening here. But I mean, yeah, it's not something that I'm happy about, but it was not the most shocking outcome in the world yesterday. Like you said, like you were bound to get a loss at some point. We've seen them respond to those losses quite well. So hopefully they do more of the same. Ben, what do you think like specifically the Knicks have to do to respond to that game three loss and come out with a victory game four? I have some thoughts, but I want to hear from you first and if there's any overlap there.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, shout out Krista McPherson. That's elite analysis. You can't get that kind of, you can't get that kind of analysis anywhere. Love that she's, going from the casual fan to locked in. So, really appreciate that one. Also, to answer your question, I guess some of the obvious things are limiting the careless, especially live ball turnovers. It's one thing, when you throw a pass out of bounds, as frustrating as that can be, you step out of bounds, when you dribble the ball out of bounds, whatever it might be. It's another thing. We were giving up so many live ball turnovers yesterday that allowed the Spurs to get out in transition. And I'd be willing to bet that Wemby had more dunks yesterday than in games 1 and 2 combined, which is exactly what you're going to open up offensively for them when you're turning the ball over as much and you're being careless. The other thing that I think we need to do a much better job of in game four that really maybe the most frustrating aspect of game three for me was, okay, we come out slowly. There's a lot of hoopla around the game. There's a lot of stuff we can't control about the game, and we come out slowly. We punch back big time in the second. We outscore them by 18 points, 42-24. And then the way they came out in the second half was disgusting. And it was from the first possession. We had the ball beginning of
Hmm.
third quarter up 7, and Brunson just like dribbles into a trap and just like loses the ball and it goes off Anunoby's foot. And then the Spurs come down, and I think it was a lob to Wemby, bang, right down to 5. Not that the Spurs were ever out of the game when we were up, I think it was 64-57. Not that it was over by any means, but I remember saying to Larry right in the beginning of that half, or yeah, right at the beginning of the third quarter, like, dude, I'd love to come out, bang a 3, get a stop, bang another 3, go up 13, make them call a timeout with like 11 minutes left to go in the quarter and just be like, man, okay, it's a danger zone. We could pull away right now. And they just responded horribly. So just urgency and just matching their intensity from the start is absolutely necessary in order to take the stranglehold 3-1 tomorrow.
Yeah. And obviously those kind of big, almost like thematic changes need to be the center of things. But I thought there was just some silly like X's and O's stuff that I do have faith in Mike Brown to clean up for the next game. But dude, you gotta stop treating Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle like they're Kyle Korver from three. Those are not the guys you want to chase off the line. They made some yesterday. I mean, same thing with Wemby even. They made a few, and every single time they made a three, I said to my dad, I'm like, you live with that. Like, that's not going to be something that they're going to shoot 80% from for the game. Like, they're going to get a couple, sure, but don't let that mess up your entire defense. And they did the exact opposite, where Harper, well, I don't remember what he finished with, but at one point in the game, he was like 4 for 11 from the field.
He
And
finished
yet,
5 for
he,
18.
One
yeah,
of one of 5 from 3.
yeah, 1 of 5 from three, and yet he catches it at the 3-point line, and you have guys sprinting out to him, running him off the line. In what world do you want to run Dylan Harper off of the 3-point line? You say the same thing about Castle, you say the same thing about Wemby, you say the same thing about Fox. Anyone on that team, not named Vassell or Champagny, if the possession ends with them shooting a three that's at least somewhat contested, that's a win for the Knicks defense. Like, I don't understand that whole approach. It seemed just a little, like you said, unfocused, frantic, and it really manifested itself in those defensive possessions where, yeah, you had an offensive night, but again, if you that's not something you can always control, right? Right? Defense travels. That's something that is really something that you can control. Offense, it has a lot more variables involved. And if they had just played smarter on defense, there's a different outcome there. So I need to see in game 4 that they've made that adjustment where they're not so scared of these non-shooters 3-point shooting. It doesn't make sense to me. Sometimes you'll get like a Josh Hart type performance from a guy where he goes 4 for 7, but that's not always going to happen. So I think you got to live with those a little bit more. The Spurs, they obviously want to get into the paint. This was by far the most kind of paint attempts they had in the series, and it's the game with a different outcome. So that needs to be changed tremendously. Cat and Bridges need to be more involved. I was just talking to my dad. He said Cat had a bad game yesterday. I don't know if I would necessarily say he was bad, but he
He
was
was
so
uninvolved.
quiet and uninvolved. And that, at the end of the day, as a center, you need obviously what? That's like 40% on him, but that's another 30% on Brunson, 30% on Mike Brown. You got to get him touches. He was the best player in the series for the first 2 games. I don't understand why they went away from him. And then, sorry, I'm going to cough real quick, but Mikal Bridges was both uninvolved and bad yesterday. He had a shot at a 3 at the end of the game. I had no confidence in that going in because it was his 3rd attempt of the night. You got to go back to that team system basketball. Too many possessions, even on the ones they scored, where it's like OG Anunoby dribble, dribble, shoot. Brunson dribble, dribble, shoot. Like, what are you doing there? Brunson, I mean, he did finish with 30 points, but I was not pleased with how he played yesterday. I'd much rather in game 4 see an 18 and 13 game out of Brunson, and he's had those in the playoffs when the Knicks have been on these, in these massive blowouts. A lot of that has come with Brunson's highest assist totals, like not only of this postseason, but of his career. So he needs to get back into that mode. I understand that, he does get a little like prideful, I think, especially when he plays these physical wings. You see it with like Dyson Daniels. You see it with like Eric White's and Drew Holiday's. Andrew Nemhard's a big one, but he needs to not be in that headspace. And so, I don't know. He's just got to be more of a distributor. Again, he's smart. He knows what he needs to do. I think he'll make the adjustment, but they just got to focus on the game. If the officiating continues to be poor, which I think it'll even out a little bit more now, and there's been so much attention on it, I think the league has to do some sort of change. They got to not let that bother them either. I always text Ben because I complain about the refs way more than Ben does. But my thing is like, dude, let me be the one to whine and cry about it. I don't need the players doing it. That's not going to change anything. It's not going to change anything when I do it, but it's not going to disrupt the flow of the game when I'm doing it. So stay focused. Rick Brunson's got to keep him in line over there. And yeah, I mean, listen, if I was not rooting for the Knicks in this series, or if I wasn't a Spurs fan, if I was just like Ethan, I'd be like, dude, game 4 tonight, that's gonna be awesome. Like this is a great series. It's great basketball being played. Just hopefully it's a great series if the Knicks come out on top. And
As far as like most highly anticipated finals, this has to be the most since probably the first KD LeBron with Curry, obviously. So the third Warriors Cavs matchup.
Yeah,
Mhm.
17. No, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I'll give us the spin zone I told Ben this morning, and it sounds fake. It's like it's something they'd say on Pardon My Take. I'm not gonna lie though, it makes me feel like 1% better, and I'm being very serious about it. I had the same fear when the Knicks went up 3-0 against Philly and 3-0 against Cleveland. I am so fearful, just based on Knicks PTSD, that the Knicks will become the first team in NBA history to blow a 3-0 series lead. And again, this only makes me feel 1% better after last night, but there is a part of me that's like, okay, we cannot possibly suffer the most embarrassing thing that can happen to a team, which would be blowing a 3-0 lead in an NBA Finals where a 53-year drought is on the line. Here's the deal. I'm gonna struggle if we lose the series anyway. I don't know how I would function for the better part of like the next year if the Knicks had gone up 3-0 and lost the series. I'll be honest. Like if
That you would have been saying your wedding vows just like
crying,
absolute monotone.
yes, yeah, I just be beside myself. So like again, that's not me saying, oh, if San Antonio wins the next 3 games and beats us in 6, like, oh, because they didn't reverse sweep us, I'll be fine. No, I'll still be very, very upset. But similar to what Ethan said, you can kind of, if that happens, you can kind of just tip your cap and be like, they were better than us, whereas if it's 3-0, I couldn't even fathom that. So, like I said, terrible, terrible spin zone. But it's something that genuinely crossed my mind several times last night and even this morning to the point where on my way to work, which was one of the more brutal wake ups I've ever had, and we had field day today, so we were active all day, which honestly might have actually been a good thing. Because if I was just in the classroom, like I vowed to take a little bit of a break from social media. I am self-proclaimed addicted to Twitter. It's true. I have not been on Twitter 1 second today. I'm very serious. Not even just a peek. I need a break. I didn't sleep well last night. I think it's my body's way of telling me I know you care about this, but you need to relax a little bit and still prioritize like other things in your life. So I'm trying to do that. And then when 8:30 rolls around tomorrow, let's go. Throw up the ball. We'll see what happens. So anything else
few
to add, Ben?
few few more notes.
Yeah.
My dad had a very similar experience to you. He just told me I couldn't fall asleep till midnight, and then I dreamt about the Knicks game when I was sleeping. I was
Yeah.
like, Jesus Christ,
No, I
horrible
I woke up I
series of
woke up in the middle of
events.
the night. I woke up in the middle of the night, just like my brain was racing with different things that they could have done in the game, and to the point where like I had to like we've been the math interventionist in my school is like she's like really into like yoga and focusing on like control of your breathing and control of your mind. And sometimes I don't listen to it and think it's a little bit of baloney, but I like started focusing on that. I'm like, I need to take my mind off this. So I'm like doing breathing exercises at like 1:30 in the morning, laying in my bed, just fuming about the Knicks. Go ahead.
That stuff works.
It does. I know it did. It calmed me down. It did.
Ben, question for you. How big of a fan is your dad? Is he like Larry level or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a Knicks fan because he's a Knicks fan.
Okay, nice.
So he. I'm normally the calm one when we watch. We went down 7-0, and it's like game's over. Ah.
That
So,
exactly happened with Larry and Pags when I was at their house for the game 3 of the Sixers series. It was like 5-0, 2 minutes in. Larry goes, "They're gonna kill us tonight." I'm like, "Guys, it's been a minute. There are
well,
37 minutes left."
I was telling him, I'm like, Dad, we've been down double digits each first quarter. Like, obviously, yeah, I'm not happy to start this way, but the Spurs, they come out with these punches of energy, and then they run out of the energy reserve, and we climb our way back in. And I really thought going into that fourth quarter, I'm like, it's a 1 point game. The Spurs have been going all out. Like, I'm pretty confident that we'll win this. And it didn't happen last night, but it's the same formula. Like, it'll work more times than it won't. To sweep a team of that skill level is very difficult. Two other things. I'm back in New York now, so I got back Sunday at like 4 a.m. So I've been back for a couple days now. I did a little retail therapy because I was stressing about the Knicks. I got some new basketball shoes. They're pretty sick. They're the Ja Morant threes, the Jurassic Park editions. They're pretty dope. But
And you
Brandon,
got
you got
and you
something?
got you got your new AirPods. That's the big thing. You finally got your
Yeah.
AirPods all figured out.
Yeah, yeah, I'm back on the computer, got the AirPods, got this new shirt. Anyway, so I've been at the gym. I went to the mall to get some stuff. You see the Knicks gear everywhere. Everyone's, talking about it. Like, I'm not a big like talk to a stranger type of guy, like kind of just do my own thing. But even me, I'm chatting away. I go to Walmart yesterday after the gym to pick up some protein powder and some pre-workout and stuff. And I'm in line, and the guy in front of me is this like older dude, and it's probably someone around my age working at the cash register, and they're arguing about the Knicks, and the guy was saying like, "Yeah, Brunson's just been getting doubled every play," and the kid behind the register was like, "What are you talking about? That's not like he's seen some doubles, but that's not what's they're guarding him one on one in game two. Like, what are you?" Saying guy leaves, and I go up to Pam like, yeah, I don't really know what he's talking about. Like, he's not getting doubled. And we start talking about it, and he must have not been a Knicks fan. I didn't ask him if he was a Spurs. I don't know, but he was like, oh, so you're a Knicks fan? I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, yeah, but are you a real Knicks fan? I was like, I ain't gonna say what I said to him. I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, I had a David Lee jersey back in the day. He's like, yeah, but like, can you name like who was on the team in 2018? And I was like, first of all, I'm not the one to play this game with. Second of all, Big E just got me warmed up the week before. So I'm just Cole Aldrich, Jason Smith, Langston Galloway, Cleanthony Early. And he's like, all right, fairs. And I was like, yeah, shut up. What do you mean? So it's just, I don't know, it's a cool vibe in New York right now. I haven't been to the city yet, just because I don't really want to go down there. I prefer being in the nature right now in the summer. I'll get there at some point, but apparently it's crazy there. I got friends who, like I said, they don't really care about basketball, and they're going out to watch these games. I just had one of my friends texting me. He wants my copy of Blood in the Garden, which is a really good book about the 90s Knicks. He's trying to learn about the history. They got all sorts of stuff happening. So it's cool. It's a good vibe, but I guess this leads me to two last points. First of all, these LARPer Knicks fans gotta chill. Like, come on. We don't need to be getting. It's a basketball game. I'm about as crazy as a fan as it gets. I was the number one fan in Guatemala, famously. Don't like fight a cop. Like if you're the type of dude fighting a cop after a Knicks game, you're not there to be a Knicks fan. Like you're looking for some social media clout or just like an excuse to act like a hooligan. So that's annoying. I hope people understand that that doesn't actually represent the vast majority of Knicks fans and all of the actual Knicks fans. And last thing, just on another note, dude, 8:30 tip with the NBA is criminal because this league, I'm doing my best, Brandon, to not have any editing going on here, but dog, that was a 55-minute fourth quarter yesterday. How
Yeah.
you have one play, review, one play, timeout. I'm like, just play basketball. It was so infuriating. Just like sometimes the NBA as a product, man, I'm like, you're not going to have this issue in the World Cup. You're not going to have this issue in the Super Bowl. Like, I don't know what happens in hockey, but I assume it's got to be better than this. And like, it's just, ugh.
NHL's been giving us some 8 o'clock starts, so it's a little better, but not by
No,
much.
no. Not
It's
a
not even
chance. We'll get to that in a second. I went to your house the other day. It was an 8 o'clock start. They dropped the puck at 8:25.
That's fair. That's true. Yeah. I'm just,
Yeah.
either way, my point is, well, okay, scheduled on ESPN 8 o'clock start. I'm assuming the next game is scheduled 8:30.
It's
8:30
scheduled
tips at
8:30.
8:45, more or
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
But then it's just those replays, just like it ruins the flow. Just let them play the basketball, man. It is.
Yeah.
God, it's frustrating.
One more thing before we do get to hockey. That'll be a good segue into it. Ben and Ethan, you'll appreciate this story. So there was a guy at the Planet Fitness in Springfield yesterday wearing a Josh Hart jersey. I've been trying to do better with like not just going up to random people in Knicks gear and being like, "Yo, love your shirt." So I didn't say anything to him for the entire time. He's there like the entire time I'm there. He's working out, and I'm just like, I really want to go up to him to be like, "Go Knicks, go Knicks." So finally, I see him I'm probably about like 20, 30 feet away, and I see him talking to some other guy, and they look like they're chopping it up a bit. And I see the guy hold up like two fingers like this. And I'm thinking he's saying, two more wins, two more wins. So I make a beeline over there, thinking I'm about to just like jump into a great conversation. Fortunately, at the very last moment, before I said anything, I realized he's telling the guy, "Yeah, I have two more sets on this machine." So fortunately, I did not involve myself in what would have been. I was so close to being like, "That's right, bro. We just need two more." And thankfully, and it was in that moment, it was another one of those similar to when I said, when I said about like laying in my bed at 2 a.m. last night, just fuming. I was like, I think I need to calm down. I need to relax, just like do my own thing. And I never end up saying anything to him. So maybe I should have. Maybe it would turn the vibes. But no, I thought that was a kind of funny story, similar to your story, Ben, about the guy pressing you at the register at Walmart for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's the biggest story in sports right now in America. Is there any other American sports happening right now, Ben, Ethan? Anything
You know
else going
what,
on?
Ben? I know what you want me to say, but I'm gonna set Brandon up for success here because through the first three games of the Stanley Cup final, it has just been electric. Even when we thought it wasn't gonna be electric, it's been even more electric. So, Brandon, I'll turn it to you. Talk a little bit about the puck that's being played between, as the Canadians would say, Vegas, not Vegas, Vegas and Carolina.
So
See you, Ethan.
as Pags just alluded to, every single moment of this series, almost, well, I'm not saying every single moment, but every single game has been electric. And you got one big point to make out of all this is big time players make big time plays in big time moments. And we've seen that in this series. So, Pags, before I get into those big time players, though, as you alluded to earlier, you were at my house for game 3, and we had a real slow first period. It was very much defensive oriented. Not a lot of shots. I don't know what the exact shot count was, but we were both saying, like, man, this game is just not living up to the hype of those first 2 games. We go into the end of the first period, not a single goal has been scored at this point. Vegas comes out roaring in the second period. 2 goals, both of them initially called back off of challenges, which at the time, based on the review, they were legitimately called back. It's not like they were, flip-flop calls here. But then again, boom, 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 boom. Mitch Marner has proven to the Toronto Maple Leafs, hey, I can make the big-time plays. You guys are the problem. Because he winds up with a hat trick and an assist in this game, a game in which Vegas wound up with 5 goals, one of them coming in double overtime. So, big-time player, big-time plays, big-time moments. Pegs.
The little hockey trivia for you. This is courtesy of Spit and Chicklets today. As I said, I was in no mood to listen to any basketball content. So yes, I listened to Spit and Chicklets on my way to work today. For those unfamiliar, that is the Barstool Hockey podcast. Brandon, in Mitch Marner's best postseason with the Toronto Maple Leafs, how many goals did he score for them?
I'm going to say 2.
Okay, it was 3. So he scored 3 goals in his best postseason with the Maple Leafs, which I believe was over the course of like 4 or 5 postseasons. He scored 3 goals in a matter of 6.5 minutes in the second period of the Stanley Cup final in Game 3. One of them was an absurdly lucky bounce. Another one of them was one of the most disgusting dangles I'd ever seen that just froze Freddie Anderson in his tracks and quite literally embarrassed the rest of the Carolina Hurricanes. That's all I had in terms of just Mitch Marner, and I wanted to throw that at you. Go ahead, B.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. So, end the second period, it is 4-0 Vegas. And like I said, they've actually scored 6 goals, just had a couple of them called back. So, just firing on all cylinders, and it looks like it's going to be Vegas's game to run away with at this point. And then early on in the third period, Pags, you say to me, is like, it's getting kind of late. You had just had a long drive back up to Connecticut and Mass from New Jersey that same day from a wedding you were at. So you're telling me it's like, hey, been a long day. If we keep on the trajectory we're on, I'm probably gonna head out a little early. Like, this thing looks like it's pretty much wrapped up. Well, Carolina told you to screw yourself, because 3 goals scored in a matter of 39 seconds within minutes of you making that statement. Jordan Martinook, Taylor Hall, Jordan Staal, all potting goals, and making that game a lot tighter than it initially appeared it was going to be. And then another big-time player in a big-time game and a big-time moment come with a big-time play. Andrei Svechnikov with the power play goal at 18 minutes and 18 seconds in the period to tie that game up, sending us to double overtime in the result of that game. So I don't know how else to put it, except for every single moment of this series has been cinema, and it's been a fantastic series to watch.
Absolute cinema.
Absolute
Yeah,
cinema.
That's how I would put it.
Yes. And then so I gotta say, the ending, if you watch the ending of that game, was a little disappointing.
But that's how those games go, though, B. Like you and I have watched enough playoff hockey to know that when the game gets deeper and deeper and deeper, into, especially when you get past that initial overtime, especially if you get into, I know it didn't go to a third overtime, but a second, a third, even those rare fourth overtimes, it's always a crappy goal that ends it. It's a goal where it's like, of all the saves so-and-so made, how did that one find its way into the net? You know that.
Yeah, and after that second goal, I'm not sure the exact time that the goaltender switch was made, but Carolina ultimately decided Freddie Anderson done for the night and put Brandon Bussey in. He plays the entire third period and plays really well. Didn't let up a goal until that double overtime winner, and it's really just a bad bounce. Shot misses the net completely, hits the back end boards, comes back at him. Just hits the back of his skate, and as he's sliding across the crease, kind of sticks to his skate just enough that it pulls it back in and winds up bouncing off of his skate and into the net. So just like I said, out of everything that we saw in that game, it's not really like the highlight reel goal that you want to see to end it, but either way, just hell of an entertaining game from these two teams. I can't wait to see what they've got up, if they're going to put on a show for us for tonight. That game's going to be starting, well, hopefully 18 minutes. That's when they're scheduled for. But as we established, figure it's not going to be till 8:25. So we'll see what happens, Pags.
Question.
Yeah.
So one of the main topics on Chicklets today was if head coach of Carolina Hurricanes, nicknamed Rod the Bod, Rod Brindamore, is he going to ride the hot hand with Bussy, or is he going to go with Freddie Anderson, the guy that got him there? A record of 13, and I guess technically the loss was on Bussy the other night. So 13-2 so far throughout these playoffs.
I gotta say, I think you have to go with Bussy. They both had incredible seasons, but this is a 1A, 1B situation. And especially after just how well Bussy played in that second half, because the only goal that was scored on him was really like, it's not completely his fault. It's just a bad bounce. So I think you got to ride with him. He's played exceptionally well. Carolina, as we've established throughout the last, when we did our preview of the Stanley Cup final, we kind of established like Carolina doesn't need stellar goaltending and net to be successful to win games. Obviously, it helps, but they can kind of play with anybody back there. So, if he's going to continue playing as well as he did in that third period, I don't see a reason to go back to Anderson. I think once you start getting into these conversations, you're opening up a pretty dangerous door in a playoff series where, a game or two can matter. So, if you're going to make that switch, you have to do it now. You can't put Anderson back in and then pull him again. You just can't do that. So either well, and I take it back. I think you can do that with Anderson, but if you start Bussy tonight, you cannot go back to Anderson. You cannot go back to Anderson.
Yeah, I'm with you for the most part there. Sometimes you gotta ride the hot hand, but I understand, it's this late. So it'll be interesting to see. I tried to look up. I figured it'd be established already who's starting, but maybe they're keeping that hush hush until the very last minute. I couldn't find anything on who officially is getting the nod to go in
Is
net
that tonight?
for. Yeah. It's should puck drop should be in about 40, hopefully a little less, because I do want to catch maybe the first 2 periods of that game. I'm not standing for the whole thing, but yeah. B, I know you also wanted to talk about some interesting developments as it pertains to the next head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. Talk to us about that, and for the more casual fans who are unfamiliar with whatever you can share about the controversy surrounding former disgraced coach Mike Babcock.
Before we actually get into that, Bussy is starting tonight, and
Okay.
we just got that notification come through. And the important fact here, or important little tidbit I find here, is that Freddie Anderson will not be the backup. They're going with Pyotr Kochetkov as the backup for tonight's game. So I find that to be the more interesting of the two, just because, you have to wonder if there's an underlying injury there that we don't know about. I think that's very
He missed
possibility.
practice yesterday for what people deemed a maintenance day. It's very clear to me that is way more than just a maintenance day at this particular point.
Yeah, if he's scratched, like if he's out of the lineup, I do not think that is a maintenance day. So like I said, if Kochetkov is the backup, I think Anderson's probably done for the series, and it's Bussy's net for the foreseeable future. Unless he like really plays horribly tonight, it's his net for the rest of the series. So
Makes sense. All right, talk to us about Iron Mike.
Yeah. So the Oilers, as we know, they reached out to the Vegas Golden Knights about interviewing Bruce Cassidy. And that situation is a whole nother ordeal that we've already discussed a little bit on the show here. It's confusing to say the least, but given that the way that situation is playing out, the Oilers have decided to, evaluate other options. Not that Cassidy's off the table, but they're going to evaluate who else is on the table for their head coaching opening. And with that, they decided to pursue Mike Babcock. Now, this is a name that comes with a lot of controversy surrounding it. I don't think anyone is going to deny that when you look at this strictly from a coaching perspective, as far as what his skills are and his capabilities, he is a very good, I'm not going to say elite, but a very good and above average coach. He is capable of producing winners. But when you look at the mess that surrounds him in terms of off-ice distractions and the toxic locker rooms that he creates and that are left in his wake, you have to wonder if this is really the right move for the Oilers. And before I get into how it's going to impact them specifically, assuming they do decide to move forward with hiring him, I want to talk a little bit about the past controversies that he's had in his career, because this is not something small that's, can be brushed over. These are very significant moments of controversy. First off, one of the first ones that, is widely discussed is the handling of Chris Chelios in the Winter Classic in 2009 near the end of his career. Now, Chelios is a Hockey Hall of Famer, has his number retired in, I believe it was Chicago. widely considered to be one of the greatest players of his era.
American legend.
Yeah, exactly. Played for Team USA. Like he is one of the better players to come out of one of the best players to come out of American hockey of his era. And near the end of his career, they had a Winter Classic in his hometown, and rather in a power struggle that Mike Babcock was having in the front office and the general manager, he decided, I get to decide who sits and who doesn't, and decided that Chelios wasn't going to play in the Winter Classic in front of his hometown. So he was forced to put him in the lineup by the front office, but he said, I'm giving him one shift. So Chelios played one shift. He played the opening shift and didn't see the ice again for the entire remainder of the game. It is pretty famously seen, drinking beers on the bench, getting handed beers by his kids. So that just, how he handled that situation with an all-time great, a franchise icon, a lot of people criticized him for that. Which that from the surface appears to be a purely hockey move. It was towards the end of Chelios' career. So, when guys get up there in age, there could be an argument to be made for, getting younger legs out there. But at this point in time, like, this is a big moment in his career. Like, not the right time for it was basically what people said. Then there's the Mike Modano situation, a similar situation. Mike Modano was approaching 1,500 NHL games played and was conveniently scratched for quite a few games leading up to that, to the point where he did not hit that mark purely because Mike Babcock said, I'm not going to let you play that many games. I'm going to deprive you of hitting a career milestone like that. Then there's the Johan Franzen situation, also in Detroit. Franzen comes out saying he legitimately has PTSD from having to deal with Mike Babcock's antics in the locker room and constantly being harassed and bullied by his head coach. These are not the actions of a leader. These are the actions of someone who thinks he can do whatever he wants and, treat the players he's expected to lead with a level of disrespect that's just completely unacceptable. I'm going to talk a little bit now about a guy that we've already talked about this episode, Mitch Marner. Marner, early in his career, was asked by Mike Babcock in a private meeting that was held in the coach's office to put together a list of his Toronto Maple Leafs teammates in the order of which he thought was who he thought were the hardest workers on the team were. And Marner, not wanting to upset his coach, again, young guy, I think still a teenager at the time, trying to appease his coach, stay in the NHL, does as he's asked. And then Babcock decides, we're going to share that list with the entire rest of the team and out this kid for who he thinks is the laziest on the team. And then the last one, the one that I thought was the final nail in the coffin after he was fired by Toronto, before he was able to even stand behind the bench for a game with Columbus, goes through players' phones in private meetings, one-on-one meetings, saying, you're going to open up your camera roll and you're going to show me all the pictures you have on your phone. I want to know what kind of players I've got on my team, which is a massive just violation of privacy. Like, imagine if your boss, pulls you into the office, hey, pull out your phone, show me everything you got on your camera roll. I want to see all that. Babcock was fired over that before he even got a chance to, coach a single game with the Blue Jackets. After, the Blue Jackets being widely criticized for hiring him in the first place after all the other things he'd done in his career. So, looking at the Oilers, why are we giving this guy another shot? Why are we open to that consideration? If you have to go, which the Oilers have done, if you have to go to the NHLPA and say, hey, are you guys okay if we hire this guy? Like, you're probably getting yourself into something you don't want to be involved in. You're going to be generating some pretty nasty headlines just from that side alone. And it's clear to me that this front office is okay with generating a toxic culture. And I say that because the Oilers general manager is Stan Bowman. Stan Bowman was the general manager for the Chicago Blackhawks during their dynasty run from 2010 to 2015, but with Taves and Kane and Duncan Keith, who was found to be partially responsible for the cover-up of a sexual assault allegation by a coach on another player, and was removed and basically suspended, fired by the Blackhawks prior to that investigation, but then afterwards suspended by the NHL for his involvement in that cover-up, and the suspension was indefinite. He had to be reinstated in order to be eligible to come back. And he, the league, Gary Bettman, decided, you've served your time, you've served your penance, you've shown us that you have, I don't want to say rehabilitated because I don't feel that's the right word, but you've shown you've learned from past mistakes enough to the point where we feel we can trust you to be a part of this league again. Well, if you were involved in that and now you're trying to bring in a coach with Babcock's history, that I don't understand how anyone could trust either one of them to be in charge of an NHL team and be involved in professional sports in any way, shape, or form. This is absolute malpractice by the Oilers. I think I don't see how this has a place in professional sports. I really don't.
It sounds like a really toxic culture. I get it for sure. Like I wouldn't want to be a part of that work environment. But you're saying you don't like get why these guys have jobs. That dude Bowman won 3 Stanley Cups with the Blackhawks. Like I get why he has a job.
Well, again, from that perspective, I do, because to me, Bowman coming back, he's only been there recently. There hadn't been these kinds of red flags before. This to me this is the first time that I see something where I legitimately say, what are you doing? Like you clearly didn't take anything away from last mistake. Babcock has plenty of history. That's what I'd criticize more so than Bowman at this point, because Bowman hasn't really done a whole lot. But the fact that you're willing to help build that culture back up, that's the red flag to me with Bowman. Like I said, both of these guys have history of winning. It's not that's a concern. It's just the level of abuse that players have taken under their watch. That's my concern.
Understood.
Yeah, and if as you said, Brandon, if the Oilers do proceed to move forward and actually make this hire official, like it seems like all signs point to right now, the early days of his coaching career with the Oilers will be heavily, heavily inspected, and I'm sure a future topic of ours, especially as we head into the the post NBA and NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Final, World Cup kind of vibes.
And before we wrap this up, I just do have one other thing to add, is that supposedly there is an Oilers player on record anonymously, but spoke with a reporter who said if the Oilers do go through with hiring Babcock, that he will be speaking with his agent about all options to get himself out of Edmonton. So you already have players who are saying if he comes into coach this team, I'm gone. You can say goodbye to me. I will not be a part of this.
Connor McDavid's a Ranger. That's my one takeaway from that. Awesome. Let's go. All right. Now, let's go ahead and Brandon, appreciate the insight on that one, not just with the Babcock situation in Edmonton, but also the intrigue into what is an awesome Stanley Cup final that I'm excited to watch Game 4 of tonight. So an event that not just the United States, the world is excited for. The World Cup. I had a wedding in Jersey this past Friday, and I drove past the MetLife Stadium, which, according to FIFA, is the New York/New Jersey Stadium, seeing as how FIFA is not sponsored by MetLife and they're a corrupt organization, so they refuse to even have those names on the stadiums, whatever. But nonetheless, the vibes were pretty exciting. I had New York City on my right. I had MetLife on my left. Knicks were up 2-0 at the time, so I was a little more happy about it. But regardless, the vibes are really high. I'm excited for the World Cup to get underway in just 2 days? The first game is June 11th. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you got a preview. It's all you. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. Pags, back in March, you called the NCAA tournament the greatest tournament in sports. It may be in the United States for a United States-based tournament. I personally think the World Cup is the greatest tournament in sports. It's the one spot where for 6 weeks, all these geopolitical rivalries that are going on, right, kind of takes a little bit of a break, and the world gets to watch these incredible athletes in a competition. Yeah, Ben.
Olympics.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the same appeal to me. I prefer a team sport. I mean, the Olympics is a great catalog of multiple sports, right? But the World Cup to me is the best tournament in sports, and we are having this is a first World Cup, this is a World Cup of many firsts, right? This is the first 48 team World Cup since 98. So the past 7 World Cups were 32 teams. So it's expanded. It's the first World Cup to be hosted in 3 countries, that being Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. I'm really excited. I put together some power rankings. The guys asked for some player spotlights. And we'll talk quickly about the U.S. team's expectations. I wanted to first talk about a few teams that just missed my top 10 power rankings. Belgium, classic team with a lot of De Bruyne, he's getting older, so a team that's aging, but still has a very solid squad. They just missed my top 10. Senegal, the reigning AFCON champions, the Africa Cup of Nations. They are a terrific team led by Sadio Mane, who is in the twilight of his career, but they have phenomenal players who start for European teams at all other 10 positions. And Norway is probably the biggest mystery to me in this World Cup. Currently, they're ranked 30th by the FIFA World Rankings. This is their first major tournament since the 1998 World Cup, or their first World Cup, excuse me. They probably have made Euros since then, but the first major tournament with Erling Haaland, I do think they're better than the 30th team in the world, but I've seen power rankings ranking them within the top 10, sometimes as high as 6. I don't really see that for an inexperienced group, but they could surprise some people. So to me, they're the most confusing team in this World Cup because I could easily see them losing in the round of 32. I think a really successful World Cup for that team would be a quarterfinal. To get to my top 10. First, I want to preface, I have a little bit of a tier. So the top 4, I think, are my favorites, right? Those 4, I think, are the teams that could win the World Cup. 5 through 7 are teams that have a really good shot at it, but I really wouldn't bet my money on it. And 8 through 10 is kind of that next tier down where I think semifinal is probably their peak. So number 10, I have a team that finished in the Copa America final and lost to Argentina back in 2024. That would be Colombia. A team with not a whole lot of star power at the top. Of course, you have James Rodriguez, who had a fantastic 2014.
How old is he now?
Yeah, he's at the twilight of his career. He's 34 years old now. Bouncing around teams all across the world. He's played in Qatar. He's played in MLS with Minnesota. He's played in Mexico recently. Went back to Spain. But still really a player who plays at a high level. When he puts that national team shirt on, he had a really good Copa America tournament. But the player to watch for that team would be Luis Diaz, Bayern Munich left winger. The Colombians call him Lucho. He's by far their best player. For Munich this season, he had 26 goals and 23 assists in 51 appearances, which is quite remarkable. I consider a player who's an attacking midfielder or a forward, if they have every other game a goal or assist, is a pretty good stat line. So 26 and 23 for 51 appearances is quite incredible. Of course, playing on a loaded Bayern Munich team, but Luis Diaz would be Colombia's player to watch. At 9, I have a traditional powerhouse. That'd be Germany.
Florian Wirtz.
Yeah, Florian Wirtz, he was close to being my player spotlight. He's probably their second best player in my opinion, but he has been playing more consistent football than the player who I have highlighted in the spotlight, that being Jamal Musiala, also of Bayern Munich. Had a big injury at the end of June in the Club World Cup where it had him out until March. He broke his tibia and really didn't get a whole lot of playing time this season for Bayern. So he's not really in the greatest form, but he's kind of their key. If Musiala can find that form where in 24-25 he was being talked about as one of the best attacking midfielders in the world. He's only 23 years old. Now that he's got a few more games under his belt and then a few more with the national team, I think he's really their key if they want to make a deep run into this tournament. Of course, was a semifinalist in 2022 Qatar's World Cup. They sort of lost, but sort of won the Africa Cup of Nations last winter. There's a huge controversy. It was between Morocco and Senegal. Morocco conceded a penalty. Senegal conceded a penalty. The players didn't like it. They walked off the field for 15 minutes. The Moroccan player stepped up to take the penalty, ice cold, missed it. Keep in mind, this game is tied in extra time at this point. It goes to penalties. Senegal ends up winning on penalties, and then the African Confederation a month later says they take away the trophy from Senegal and present it to Morocco because of the controversy. The players for Morocco have not accepted the trophy, right? They still say Senegal is the champion. But on paper, Morocco is technically the African champion. Their player to watch, Achraf Hakimi, the best fullback in world football, Paris Saint-Germain, back-to-back champion of football, or Champions League winner, and maybe the most rapid player in all of world football as far as pace goes, ability to beat anybody out. I have Hakimi over anyone. Now we go up into the next tier. So this next tier would be, teams that can make the final. Who knows? Maybe they can flirt with a title. Number 7, I have Yannick's home country, the Netherlands. I think this is a really solid team, especially from the back four and their midfield. They don't really have like a key guy though up top to put away goals, and I think that's really, really, really important, especially in a short tournament, right? It's going to be really hard to win this tournament by not conceding goals and clean sheets everywhere. Yeah, Ben?
What can I expect from Robert Van Persie at this cup?
Well, I don't know who Robert Van Persie is. Robin Van Persie, though.
Yes, that's what I meant.
I think he might just be in the stands. He has not played professional football in about a decade. But one of the greatest Dutch players of all time, and unfortunately quite a good player for Arsenal as well. The Dutch team, their player to watch is also another defender. It's a center back. The only center back that I will have on this list is their captain, Virgil van Dijk of Liverpool. He is at the twilight of his career now. He'll be 34 at this point, and just an all-out monster. This is the type of guy who you build in a lab for a center back. 6'5", has way more muscle than most of his peers, and a terrific defender on ball, can play the ball forward to midfielders and even forwards. He's going to have to be on the top of his game if the Dutch want to win. Next, number 6, I have Brazil. Maybe the traditional powerhouse of world football. 5 World Cups. No team has more than 3 other than Brazil. However, I'd say this is probably the first World Cup in a while where the expectation for Brazil in the outside world isn't too high. I don't think a lot of people are thinking that they are in the semifinals even. But I think that might play to their advantage, right? Not a lot of pressure on them. Their player to watch for me is clearly Vinicius Jr., a player who's won multiple Champions League with Real Madrid, with this coach, Carlo Ancelotti. Player who's really familiar, and he's going to have to be making plays for others and as well as scoring goals for them to have some success. Yeah, Ben.
Is Neymar, Hulk, or David Luiz still on the team?
So David Luiz still plays. He plays in Brazil. He is not on the national team anymore, but he still plays club football. He's over 40 years old, Chelsea legend. Hulk, I don't know what he's up to be honest.
That's the
I don't
coolest name in football history. The guy's a
think
dog.
it really is. And Neymar plays for Santos, his club growing up in Brazil. He is on this national team. I don't really know how much of a contributor he will be. I do think he'll play, right? You bring a player of that caliber, he'll play at least like 15 minutes a game, but I don't think he should start for him at this point. There were questions whether he was even going to be on the team, but their manager, Ancelotti, who's widely regarded as one of, if not the greatest manager in football in history, said, would you want to be the one to drop him? And it makes sense, right? Like, this guy's a cultural icon. It's easier for, I think, Brazilian people to digest if they lose the World Cup and Neymar's on the team rather than if they lose in the World Cup and Neymar's not on the team. So I feel like they had to bring him in that sense. But as far as playing at a top level anymore, Neymar's definitely not at that. He is actually battling with a calf injury right now. We'll see at what point he returns to this team. The manager has up until tomorrow to make any last-minute decisions, whether to bring a player or not, if a last-minute injury came up. My final team, yeah, Ben.
Can I guess it? Can I guess your last team in this tier?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it Poland?
It's not Poland. It's not Poland.
Is Poland not in the top 10?
They're not even in the tournament this year.
They're not in the tournament? You don't think got Lewandowski? Is
They
that guy a
do.
dog?
He is old now. Yeah, I don't think Poland qualified. You can fact check me on that.
Let me get one more guess.
Yeah.
Japan with my boy
No,
Son.
yeah, Son's from Korea, but Japan's one of my dark horses. That's all right though.
Wait, I got it. Croatia.
Nah, very fun team. You know, they might make a run, and they probably should have been just on my outside, but it's not them. It's not them. Do you want? You know what? Go ahead. I think you got this.
USA?
It's not them. It's not them.
We're gonna keep going for hours if I do this. You gotta tell
USA
me.
is number 1. Come on, let's be realistic here.
We'll go over that in a few minutes. I don't want to keep us here like the entire night. It's not coming home. England's my number 5. As far as talent goes, you can put them up there probably to second. I just don't see it though. This is a team with a lot of holes, especially defensively. They have the right manager, in my opinion, but In my opinion, he also didn't bring the right players, especially coming off the bench. I agree with probably the 11 he'll end up starting is probably the 11 I would draw up. Not to say that Thomas Tuchel definitely doesn't know more football than me, because obviously. But I don't know. To me, this is a team that has too many holes defensively. Mark Gay is great. I don't know how solid Ezri Konsa will be as a center backing partner for him. We'll see how good Elliot Anderson is next to Declan Rice in that double pivot. Obviously, they have superstars in Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane. Those are my two players to watch for that team. I kind of skipped over Brazil's player to watch. Oh, no, I said Vinicius. My apologies.
Mhm.
Yeah, England, it's Jude Bellingham. As far as a player you can put at any position on the pitch, Jude Bellingham is one of those players. He just happens to be the best at playing attacking midfield. Yes, Ben.
Why is Cole Palmer not on this team?
Yeah, so I was very disappointed when Cole Palmer did not make this team. Yeah, still had double-digit Premier League goals this year, despite battling injuries all year, but I think the injuries were part of it. He plays center attacking mid, which is definitely occupied by Jude Bellingham first, which I would not argue with. Morgan Rogers of Aston Villa had a fantastic year. He's really favored by Tuchel. He's probably the backup number 10. He can also play over to the left. And Eberechi Eze is from Arsenal. He's a good player, really good at set pieces. I think that's a reason why he brought him. He can also play on the left. And the argument you can make for Palmer is maybe he doesn't play as the attacking mid, but he can play off the right wing. Saka's the number one. I understand that. But as far as like a similar profile to Saka, if he were to go down, Cole Palmer is not that, right? He's not a player who's going to press the entire game. He's not a player that's going to dash down the wing and be the fastest player on the pitch. He's a player who wants the ball at his feet, get to the middle of the field, spray out passes, or if he has an opportunity to shoot. So I think that's ultimately why they took Nani Madueke, who's a guy who has a lot of pace down the wing. And unfortunately, Cole Palmer is one of many England players who was controversially left off this team. Yeah, it would be crazy if England won. I think as bad as Knicks fans want it, England
Yeah.
fans this World Cup just maybe as bad, if not more.
Well, in Guatemala, I made a friend with this guy from England. He was working at an NGO down there on like a 3-month contract, and he actually watched like the first game of the finals with me, and he was like, "Yeah, I think this is the first time I've met someone who's like been as invested as like me and my friends when we watch England in the World Cup." Like it's a very similar thing where I mean, like New York's a basketball city, England is like the home of football, right, or whatever, and they just
Absolutely.
haven't won in ages.
Yep. It's been since 1966, so it's been even longer than the Knicks. Granted, this tournament doesn't happen as frequently either, but yeah, England fans are waiting. Number 4, we have Portugal, and immediately when you come to mind, you think of Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the greatest
Ronaldo.
players of all time. However, he is 40 years old, playing in Saudi Arabia at this point, still producing at a high level in that league, but that league is not nearly the leagues that the other top players in the world play in: England, Spain, Germany, France, etc. But I think Portugal has a really good chance because they have the best midfield in this tournament between Vitinha and João Neves, two players from Paris Saint-Germain, and Bruno Fernandes, who had an unbelievable season with Manchester United, led the Premier League in goals plus assists, the best midfield in the tournament, the best left back in the world in Nuno Mendes. They're going to struggle to score goals. I think Vitinha is clearly their best player. He might be the best midfielder in the world. However, I think their left winger, Rafael Leao of AC Milan, if he's able to produce at a high level, if he's able to get inside from the left and create opportunities for Ronaldo making those runs, for Bruno Fernandes making those runs, or take shots himself, if he's dangerous down that wing like he can be, I think Portugal's got a really, really good chance, especially with Nuno Mendes overlapping him. We get to our top 3. Promise we'll wrap up soon, boys. I know this is a longer episode. Number 3 is the defending champion, Argentina. Now, listen, they are the defending champions of the world. They are Copa America's champions. Messi gets a little bit older every single day. Otamendi, one of their
Me too.
star players, he is older as well. Both of those guys in the twilight of their careers, 38 years old. They still have incredible talent in their midfield. between Enzo Fernandez and Alexis McAllister, but they're players to watch. I couldn't decide on one. It's two. There's their strikers. Julian Alvarez of Atletico Madrid, who's probably going to start, and Lautaro Martinez of Inter Milan, who would probably start for every single other team, but Julian Alvarez, and with the exception of France and Norway, Julian Alvarez is just that good up front. So, yeah, Ben.
Is Emiliano Martinez still running it in goal?
He absolutely is, yeah. Emi Martinez is famously one of the most trash-talking goalkeepers in the sport.
Yeah, he's
And
quite the character.
he definitely is, and a very, very clutch goalkeeper, of course, in that 2022 World Cup final when he made saves on Dembele and Chouameni. Yeah, unbelievable keeper. Argentina's got a good chance. I just don't feel like they have the quality of the depth of quality in the squad compared to the two teams above them. Second, I have yeah.
So
Ben.
does this mean Germany is not in your top 10 either?
No, there were 9.
Oh, they were 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's right. I yelled Florian Wirtz.
That's right. Number 2. Number 2 is the defending champions of Europe. That would be Spain. Look, Spain is loaded as far as with their talent up front on their wings. Lamine Yamal is only 18 years old, lighting the world on fire. He's won a Euros. He's won 2 Spanish League titles, and he's only 18. He might be you can make the argument he already is the best player in football. I probably wouldn't put him there, but you could make that argument. He's electric dribbling wise, but we know what he's capable of. I think it really relies on the two in the midfield, Pedri and Rodri. Pedri is arguably with Vitinha the best center midfielder in the world, and Rodri was that two seasons ago, right? He was the best player on Manchester City when they won their treble. Yes, better than Erling Haaland, and was Spain's best player other than Yamal in the Euros up until he tore his ACL in that final game and hasn't really returned to that level. He won a Ballon d'Or, which is world football's MVP award, 2 seasons ago, and to win it as a central defensive midfielder is unheard of. So shows you the quality of that player. It's definitely still really good, not Ballon d'Or level anymore since that injury, but I think, outside of Lamine Yamal, Pedri and Rodri, how those two play in the midfield can really determine if Spain can get to that World Cup. In my favorite has to be France. Just an absolutely loaded squad. The 18 champions, the 2022 runner-ups. An embarrassment of riches for Didier Deschamps as their manager. It's his last tournament in charge. They have Mbappe, Dembele, who is the current Ballon d'Or winner himself. He might win it again, considering he just won back-to-back Champions Leagues and has a chance to do this with the World Cup. Michael Olise, who is an incredible player from Bayern Munich in his own right. Yeah, Ben.
Is there what happened with this whole Gavi Rodri showdown the other day?
Okay, so I don't really know. I haven't heard about this. Did they get
Okay,
into a fight
well,
at practice?
he injured Rodri with a tackle at practice in the United States.
I did not hear about this. That's a big development. If Spain does not have Rodri, that would be that's pretty detrimental in my opinion. They can maybe recover, but he is one of their top 3 key players for sure. So that's breaking news to me. I'm gonna have to read up a little bit more on that. But France, they are my favorite. They are my pick to win the World Cup. I know it's cliche, but they just have too much talent. As far as forwards go, the best in the tournament. As far as a defense paired with a keeper, probably the best in the tournament. The question is their midfield, right? How does it stack up to Spain's? How does it stack up to Portugal's, even Argentina's? It's definitely not as strong. However, between their defense and talent up front, I think it's too overwhelming. Go
Is
ahead.
is Pogba still playing for him, or is he too old now?
Now, so Paul Pogba is still playing professional football for Monaco in France. So he actually was suspended for a few seasons after a doping charge, and so he was
Nice.
out of football for a couple of years. So definitely not the same level of 2018 Pogba, where he was taking shots from outside the box and bangers in the top corner, right? But good shout, Paul Pogba, one of the best midfielders a decade ago. All right, so that wraps up my power rankings. Before we log off, Ben, Pax.
I was gonna, don't ever call me Ben again.
Yeah,
I feel like
that
we
was
should.
weird.
I feel like we should all give a pick for the World Cup, the champion. Is that I think that's fair.
Absolutely. So I went France. Pags, who you going?
It's coming home. Give me England.
Wow.
It's a summer of ending drought. It's a summer of ending droughts. Ben, to you.
I'm gonna roll with my boys in Croatia. That's what I was end up rooting for. They got old man Modric on the team, right? He's still playing.
Absolutely. Ballon d'Or winner himself, 2018.
Dude, we're getting Modric legacy summer coming up. Croatia, that's on my bucket list of places to visit. Apparently, it's gorgeous.
That would be pretty sweet. Split. I'm trying to go there.
Brandon,
Yeah, USA gonna shock the world. Shock the world.
That's a lazy pick. It's a
Well,
lazy
I only
pick.
say that because I was gonna say England, then you took
he
it.
doesn't know other.
I want to
coun-
be different.
he
Okay.
only knew 2 countries.
I don't
Yeah.
want to pick the favorite. I don't want to pick the favorite and go with France. And I was gonna go England, and you stole it right out of my mouth before I had a chance. So USA, shock the world, baby.
Yeah, I'd bet like everything I owned that the U.S. won't win the World Cup. Look, this is like the one sport where we are not the favorites or the top 2 or 3.
for the men. For the men.
For the men, absolutely. The women are fantastic. And yeah, the men just haven't figured out how to catch up. And potentially,
They're
obviously
still stuck on mustard.
there obviously are different sports, more available team sports that offer more money, quite frankly, being baseball, football, depending on the position you play, and basketball. I don't know if hockey really offers more money than soccer, though, to be honest.
Probably not. I don't know what soccer players make, but probably not.
Yeah, I think like obviously the upper echelon. So like the top, like the Erling Haaland's the top paid Premier League player, and I'd say only it's 30 million a year. But like by NBA standards, like that's nothing. I know that's over. What's the highest in the NHL? Like 60?
I'd say you're looking like 15, I think, 15, 16 now. I mean, it just had a pretty significant jump. It was like 12, 13 for a while, and just had a nice little jump up to like 15 last year. So.
Player for a good team.
I'd take it.
7. Me too. Absolutely. But so the USA. Look, the most talented team that this team on paper has ever brought to a World Cup would be the 2026 version of the United States team. However, from top to bottom, I don't think they have enough talent to make it really a super successful tournament. In my eyes, would be a quarterfinal. If they were to make it to the top 8, I would say that is an incredible tournament. I think the expectation with it being on home soil, the round of 16, depending on who they draw in the round of 32, would be a solid goal, an attainable goal. I think anything above that, it's overachieved. Yes, Ben.
Would you say it's like a disappointment if they don't make it out of the group stage? Because I know they got a pretty manageable group that they're in.
I would definitely say it would be a big disappointment if they don't make it out of the group. I think Turkey is the best team in this group. From top to bottom, I would go Turkey being 1, the United States being 2, Paraguay 3, and Australia 4. But I don't think Paraguay and Australia are really a walk in the park either. I think they're going to have to show up those games. Those teams will be ready to play. Australia, despite having like a lack of star power, they seem to always be relevant in tournaments they play in. And Paraguay as well. They have a little bit more star power, and playing in South America, playing those teams like Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay consistently really molds a better team. Yeah, Pags.
So I have 2 questions, both stemming from the same event, and that event is the friendly that the United States played against Germany last week, to which the Germans defeated them 2-1. My first one is the simpler of the 2 questions. That kid, was it his last name Robinson, who labeled that goal, which is one of the most disgusting goals I've ever seen. I don't care what the stakes are. I don't care what level it's at. That goal was disgusting. Is he a prominent player on the squad, or is he just out there because it's a friendly?
No, absolutely. Anthony Robinson will be there starting left back, or depending on how Pochettino wants to line up, left mid. A player with double-digit assists in the Premier League 2 seasons ago with Fulham. He is London born and raised. He's got an English accent. Really good player. I think he had a grandparent who was from the United States, and he declared to their national team because he knew he had a spot there. Where in England, I actually do think he would be on their team currently, but you probably wouldn't be able to say that for
So
you.
he's better than Cole Palmer?
They play different positions. The answer is no.
Sounds good. And my second question is just because also, of course, we're talking about the goals of the United States, realistic goals of the United States during this tournament. 2-1's a tight game. Is there something really positive to take about the fact that that we only lost by 1 to a German team who famously won the World Cup in 14, who's 9 on your overall power rankings? Or was it, did we place it looked like an aberration, maybe a park the bus kind of style? Is there I should just make a general. Is there any positives that we can take from that?
I'd say yes. They proved that they can hang in there with a team of the caliber that they'd be fighting probably against in the round of 16. They played Senegal last week too and beat them 2-0. And, I had them just outside of my top 10. So I do think they can hang with some of these teams like a Senegal, Norway, Germany, Colombia, but I think it really starts to get shaky when you get into like the Netherlands, Brazil, England, Spain, Portugal, France. Yeah.
Good news is in soccer, famously, it's not always a better team that wins. It's one of those sports where you can kind of, I don't want to say luck your way into a victory, but, you
Hey,
know, I,
listen,
I dabbled growing up.
listen, there are teams in the first division that lose to fourth division teams in like the side
Hmm.
cups, the FA Cup, for example. So it's kind of like the saying in the NFL, any given Sunday, right? Like, especially in soccer, sometimes those levels it just happens to be like, one team had a way better 90-minute day. And with 11 guys on the field, it really can make it tough for a team to score. Yeah.
And then maybe the closing question here, looking ahead, after this summer, will Christian Pulisic still be the LeBron James of soccer, or will there be a new guy for US like a Weston McKennie or something?
Yeah, so Pulisic, right? The LeBron James of soccer. That's a crazy take. I forget who said that, but it's not even close. Pulisic is a good player. He had 2 really good seasons for AC Milan in 24/25 and 23/24. This season, he started off really well and then really went quiet from the beginning of 2026. I do think Weston McKennie, I think he's a solid player. I think he's at a way too big of a club for his level, being Juventus, and I think he gets a lot more props just because he plays for Juventus. I do question if Pochettino even starts him. I do think he should start. That being said, I'm not the coach. I don't make that decision. And the way friendlies have gone, he has come off the bench. There are a few guys. I mean, Anthony Robinson, honestly, is a fantastic player. He could make a huge impact. I think a lot relies on Chris Richards, their number 1 center back, his health. He plays for Crystal Palace. It's been part of their revitalization, winning 2 trophies in 2 years after going 120 years without any trophies. And he's been a key part of that. One of the guys who's actually stayed throughout that. Crystal Palace has sold their 3 best players within that 2-year span and has done a fantastic job of, filtering in new players, and Chris Richards being one of those guys. So I think his health and his form is really key for them to make a run. He's the staple at the back end.
All right, yeah, because their goalie situation is a little shaky, right? You're gonna need some good center back play there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be Matt Turner, who was the 2022 starter. He plays for the New England Revolution currently on loan from Olympique
Hey,
Lyonnais in
hey,
France. He's not that good.
he's no Tim
That's that.
Howard.
He's definitely not Tim Howard. Tim Howard was very good for a U.S. keeper. I want to preface though, for anybody who like thinks of Tim Howard as like a elite goalkeeper, I wouldn't call him that. I'd say when at his peak, at the time he was playing, he was probably a top 20 goalkeeper in the world.
I mean, the way he moved was out of control, though. Sometimes.
I mean, yes, in that Belgium game in 2024, he stood on his head. But as far as like top goalkeepers, I wouldn't say so. All right, guys, we can wrap it up because I can see Pags is watching hockey. So is Brandon.
Dude, this cup is
This is
so
electric.
electric.
This is
It's
fantastic.
so hype.
This is
I
great.
appreciate y'all listening to me banter about some soccer for a
They're
little.
No.
Ethan. They're playing this game on ice. Even
Dude, go turn on ABC. It's great.
No, okay, so I loved hearing about it. I gotta say, your depth of knowledge as it pertains to soccer goes as strong as any of our depths of knowledge, whether it's Minor Ben's basketball, Brandon's hockey, even our collective football bunch. By judging by Ben's face, he doesn't seem to agree with that. But seriously, it's impressive. I'm pumped for the World Cup. And I appreciate the preview, and we'll see which one of us is correct on our predictions. Hopefully, it's coming home. All right,
Yeah, it's
ladies and
not.
gentlemen. What's up?
This Brandon's not going to get it right. But what else is new?
Hey, Brandon beat you and I in the draft, so
That's true. That's true.
you're 1-0. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. I had a ton of fun this episode, even though it was more of a somber note from a Knicks perspective. I thought we had really, really good discussion. I really appreciate you guys. Please spread the word as always, and we will see you next time. Peace.
We're up 2-1 in the finals. 2-1.
You guys are.